Mom, what's that over there? My daughter asked as we returned home from my parents' house. We were met with piles of trash bags in front of our entrance. As we got closer, I realized these bags contained our belongings, thrown together carelessly like trash. Confused, I exclaimed, "What's this? Why is this happening?" My daughter tearfully pulled out her beloved stuffed animal from one of the bags and hugged it tightly. Frustrated, I marched towards the entrance, only to find the locks had been changed while we were out. It was clear my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were behind this. Ringing the doorbell and knocking several times brought no response. "What is this? Isn't it terrible?" I muttered. Upon closer inspection, one of the trash bags had a note that read, "Parasites disappear, never come back." Anger surged within me, and I couldn't help but express my frustration aloud. The real parasites are you. This was the worst treatment I had ever received from my in-laws in 17 years. It was unbearable that they were making my daughter feel this way too. My patience exhausted, boiling with anger, I loaded our belongings into the car, and we returned to my parents' house. "I will never come back to this house again," I declared. "I'm looking forward to seeing what happens to the parasites when their host is gone." My name is Olivia. I am currently 45 years old. I live with my husband, daughter, and my husband's mother and sister. I can't say we live happily. I work from home, but this house is never peaceful. The issue lies with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, Hannah. They have disliked and ignored me for over 12 years. As my daughter Megan grew up, it bothered me less and less. I mainly work as a personal consultant. I started as a fortune teller, but as my blog became popular, I began getting more questions about attracting customers. This led to my current job. I met my husband Jake through a friend's introduction when I was training to be a fortune teller. I work in sales at a pharmaceutical company and also do affiliate marketing as a side job, which is finally starting to take off. Jake gave me great advice on attracting customers when I struggled with fortune telling. Attracted by his kindness, we started dating and got married a year later. Our income wasn't great at that time, but Jake always supported me. I'm so glad I married Jake. I truly felt this way. Living with my in-laws started about a year after we got married. It began when my father-in-law, who had been healthy, suddenly passed away. My mother-in-law felt insecure about the future and asked my husband to live with us. We agreed to live together in exchange for her taking care of the household chores. At first, my mother-in-law welcomed us and was happy. I hoped we would get along well, but I was wrong. 4 months later, she began completely ignoring me, maybe because she was unhappy that I wasn't helping with the housework. Soon, my sister-in-law Hannah also started ignoring me. I didn't mind being ignored, but my mother-in-law's tendency to involve others was challenging. Not only did Hannah hear about it, but even neighbors and relatives were informed that my daughter-in-law stays at home but says she's working, leaving all the housework to me. If I stayed even a little, she would talk back 100-fold, so I just ignored her. To make matters worse, my mother-in-law would suggest to others, "You better not talk to her too, it'll be troublesome." As a result, people around the in-law house began giving me only cold responses to my greetings. I felt isolated, and it became very difficult. Despite my pleas to stop spreading strange rumors, my words were completely ignored. Although my mother-in-law's attitude softened slightly when my daughter Megan was born 3 years after we started living together, her overall stance towards me hardly changed. However, she was very fond of Megan, and having her help with household chores and childcare was a huge relief as my work became busier. Around the same time, my husband Jake's side business started to struggle, and he seemed unable to adapt to changes in the affiliate marketing market. He approached me saying, "Olivia, can you increase your contribution to the monthly expenses a bit?" I agreed and mentioned that my consultations were increasing and my new methods were working well. Even though I was willing to help boost his sales, Jake insisted on handling it alone, saying, I think I'll try it on my own. I'm really sorry. From the start of our marriage, we agreed that Jake would manage the household finances. At first, my income was low, so he allowed me to contribute more when my sales increased. I would transfer money to Jake based on my monthly earnings, and he would give me a fixed amount for living expenses in cash. Initially, I could only contribute $300, but now I could transfer up to $3,000, though not every month. I could contribute more if I dipped into savings. I knew Jake was struggling with his side business, but his pride kept him from asking for my help. He started spending more time at caves after work, coming home later and later. When Megan was about 5, Hannah got married and moved out. Since she lived nearby, she often brought her son Frank to our house during the day. When Frank turned 1, Hannah said she wanted to start a part-time job, and my mother-in-law happily offered to take care of him until the evening. Hannah was grateful, saying, "Thank you, I'm so happy." As my mother-in-law started caring for Frank at home, she became very fond of him and began being cold towards Megan. When they fought, my mother-in-law would scold Megan and compare her unfavorably to Frank. Over time, Megan started playing near me and began to dislike my mother-in-law's behavior. I spoke up, saying, "Talk to your mother. Megan and Frank are both her grandchildren. She should treat them the same." Megan is already a big sister in elementary school. However, my mother-in-law's focus shifted, and she approached me, saying, "Things are tough at the company right now. We might not get bonuses, so could you contribute a bit more?" Despite the challenges, my blog's client attraction was successful, and I started receiving more consultations as a consultant, earning far more than I did as a fortune teller. When Jake asked for additional financial support, I responded, "I'm already contributing $4,000 a month. Isn't that enough?" "Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say, but my salary has decreased, and the side business isn't going well." "Don't be secretive," I said. "We are a couple. We should support each other in tough times." "I'm really ashamed. Thank you." Later, the amount I contributed gradually increased, and eventually, I was transferring $5,000 a month to Jake. Still, not wanting to hurt his pride, I let Jake continue to manage the finances. When Megan was in 7th grade, Hannah came back home with Frank. It seems Hannah got divorced due to her infidelity, but I don't know the details. By this time, Megan could help around the house, so household chores were divided among each family member. Being ignored by my mother-in-law and Hannah continued, but it no longer bothered me. It's unfortunate that I couldn't give Megan her own room when she started middle school, as Hannah's return meant we ran out of rooms. One night, while discussing which tutoring school Megan should attend for middle school, Hannah suddenly said, "Hey, tutoring is expensive. Why doesn't Megan study by herself? Could you stop making such comments? I'm paying for the tutoring, so it's none of your business." "What? Olivia is paying? Impossible. You don't earn anything. Jake said he's supporting you. You're just a leech, aren't you? Haha, you married him because he has money, right?" "Exactly. Jake told me not to speak ill of Olivia, but that's just shameless." My mind was filled with questions. What does this mean? What has Jake been telling his mother and the others? Jake is the one supporting this house financially? It's about time we put an end to the parasite's lifestyle. I feel bad for Megan, but if we pay for her tutoring, we won't be able to pay my compensation. Not be able to pay? Are you saying our house is paying for your compensation, Hannah? Jake said he would pay for it. You should spend your money on Frank. I began to understand the deception and felt my anger rising. My husband had always managed our household finances, and my mother-in-law had taken care of the household chores and childcare until Megan grew up, so I thought they knew I was also contributing to the household expenses. Is Jake bearing all the expenses of this house, including your living expenses and the compensation Hannah is supposed to pay? Be quiet. It's only natural for a family. You're the only outsider here, not related by blood, and yet you act as if living here is your right. It really makes me angry. I contribute money too. Don't talk back. What you contribute is barely enough for your own food expenses. You hardly have any income, and yet you're so arrogant. I could feel my body trembling with anger. I could see Megan on the side, looking like she might cry. I knew Jake had a lot of pride, but I never thought it would be this bad. In the beginning, Jake was paying for the living expenses and pocket money for my mother-in-law and Hannah, but I had started contributing as well. Now we were living on my income. I needed to talk to Jake properly. Around midnight, Jake came home. He was drunk and seemed cheerful. Can we talk? I didn't know you weren't getting any money from your mother or Hannah. They said you're covering all the expenses of this house. Oh, about that. My bad. It's a matter of pride as a man, you know. When we started living together, I was paying for everything. There wasn't a right moment to say you were also paying, and in front of the family, let me be the eldest son a little, please. Jake, with a light-hearted tone like in a comedy sketch, put his hands together. Oh, that's right. I'm going to Faye this Saturday. I'll be gone for a week. Take care. Faye? Why? I got invited to a pedal in Faye by a friend I'm doing a side business with. I'm going to make it a success, so cheer for me, Olivia. Well, I'm off to sleep. See you tomorrow. My husband lay down on the mat in a cheerful mood and soon started snoring. My anger wouldn't subside, but recently, with Jake coming home late, we hadn't talked much, and I had no idea about this. I thought he was joking while drunk, but on the weekend, Jake really left with a large suitcase. During Jake's absence, I had the freedom to use the car, so I decided to take Megan back to my parents' house. The next day, a shocking event awaited us. Mom, what is that? When Megan and I returned from my parents' house, there were piles of trash bags in front of the entrance. Upon closer inspection, these bags contained mine and Megan's belongings, carelessly packed like real trash. What is this? Why is this happening? I don't understand. Megan, crying, pulled out her beloved stuffed animal from the bag and hugged it. Furious, I headed towards the entrance. Has the lock changed? It seemed that the locks had been changed while we were out. This must be the work of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law Hannah. I rang the doorbell and knocked several times, but no one came out. What is this? Isn't it terrible? Upon closer inspection, one of the trash bags had a note saying, "Parasites disappear, never come back." I felt a surge of anger from the bottom of my heart. The real parasites are you. I couldn't help but let out a swear word. This was the worst treatment I had ever received from my in-laws in 17 years. They weren't just hurting me, but also making my daughter feel this way. I finally lost my patience. Boiling with anger, I loaded the luggage into the car, and we returned to my parents' house. I will never come back to this house again. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens to the parasites when their host is gone. When we returned to my parents' house, they were shocked. I hadn't told them about being ignored by my in-laws, the money issues, or their attitude towards Megan, not wanting to worry them. My parents said, "There's no need to go back to that house. You should claim compensation from them." They cried with anger and told me to stay with them. My mother's words, "You really had it tough," made me cry too. In reality, I had been trying my best all this time. Enough is enough. I finally decided to confront my feelings. While staying at my parents' house, I contacted a friend who had introduced me to Jake. She was connected to Jake's side business friends. "Are you doing well? I want to ask you something. Do you know if Jake's friends are currently in Faye?" That famous entrepreneur Pedal, right? I was invited but wasn't interested, so I declined. Jake didn't go, did he? Yeah, that's right. By the way, I heard Jake quit his job and is now managing a business with his wife. You two must be close. Ah, yes, that's right, I replied nonchalantly and hung up. Immediately after, I called Jake's company. What my friend said was true. and to my surprise, Jake had quit his job 3 years ago. This meant that for the past 3 years, I had been paying almost all of the living expenses for my in-laws. Looking back over the years, I suddenly felt hollow. A week later, I received a laid-back message from Jake saying he was back in the USA. After continuously ignoring him, I stopped hearing from him altogether. He must have heard the news back home. Expecting persistent contact from Jake, I hired a detective to investigate him. The investigation revealed that Jake, dressed in a suit in the morning, spent his afternoons gambling and evenings at a woman's house. So I asked for an investigation into his infidelity as well. 2 weeks later, Jake called me. It must have been close to his former company's payday, and he was panicking. Olivia, sorry. I couldn't contact you. I'm sorry for what my family did. I heard they kicked you out, and I was thinking, why did it come to this? Really? Did you tell the truth to your mother and Hannah? Jake quickly changed the subject and said something unbelievable. Let's leave that house and live in a new home, just the three of us. I'll cut ties with those who disregard you, Olivia. I'm ready to abandon my mother and Hannah, so please come back. Are you really cutting ties with your mother and Hannah? I was disappointed in Jake and his self-centered actions. So I told him I'm coming back for now, so leave the door unlocked. Jake seemed delayed in responding to my message. A few days later, I returned to my in-laws' house with Megan. Jake, his mother, and Hannah were there, but Frank was nowhere to be seen. I was relieved that Frank didn't have to witness the adults' ugly arguments. When Jake made some remarks, I ignored the displeased pair and took out a divorce form from my bag. I confronted the surprised Jake. I heard you quit your job without telling me. Since we're supposedly managing a business together, does that mean the $5,000 I've been transferring every month was actually your salary? Jake tried to excuse himself. No, that's not it. I told you the business was in trouble, right? So I decided to quit before getting fired. Really? I heard you quit 3 years ago, right? I called your company and it's still not bankrupt. Jake fell silent. I pressed further. By the way, what role do you play in our joint business? Management? Are you the accountant? Jake became increasingly uneasy and started sweating. Jake is supporting the whole family, isn't he, Mother? He quit his job, his side business isn't going well, and yet it's a mystery where the money is coming from. I'm leaving, but please continue to get financial support from Jake. My mother-in-law and Hannah's faces turned pale. But the other day on the phone, you were crying and begging to save only yourself, saying you'd cut ties with your mother and sister. Haha, but that won't happen. I'm also discarding Jake here. What do you mean? I don't understand. Jake hasn't been going to work. That's a lie. He leaves in a suit, and Olivia was supporting the household. It's true. Olivia has been paying for everything for years. I'm unemployed now and not doing any side business. We're going to have a hard life because you kicked Olivia out. We could have had an easy life without working if you hadn't done anything unnecessary. What do you mean by that? You were planning to abandon us, weren't you? Jake's response made my mother-in-law and Hannah furious, and they started arguing. While they caused a commotion, Megan and I began to take action. I came to pick up some forgotten items. I took a cleaning robot bought within the last 5 months, an expensive microwave favored by my mother-in-law, and the beauty device Hannah had gotten from Jake. Wait, that's mine. This is mine since I bought it with my money, or you can pay me back for it. Hannah fell silent at my words. Then I searched for and gathered my belongings from their rooms. The items they had put out did not include my expensive brand bags and accessories. Why are you taking that too? This is mine. I ignored their complaints and sweet talk. Finally, I dropped a bombshell on Jake. Oh, I forgot. I plan to claim compensation from your mistress, Lauren. Tell her it's no use running away. What? How do you know about her? I know you went to Faye with Lauren recently. Good for you, right? Of course, I have all the evidence of the affair, so no escaping that. No way. You've been deceiving me and having fun for the past 3 years. I'll be claiming compensation for the affair, child support for Megan, and oh, you were secretly paying Hannah's compensation too. I'll be claiming that back as well. As I prepared to leave, my mother-in-law and Hannah desperately tried to stop me. I was wrong, Olivia. I'm sorry. We just believed what Jake said. We can't live without you. We'll do anything. Please help us. I can't pay you back for the compensation. I'm sorry too. I apologize for everything. You'll forgive us, right? I couldn't help but laugh at their foolish faces. They finally realized who had been supporting their lifestyle, realizing too late that their non-blood-related support was gone. Let's just ignore these people, Mom. Let's go home. Yes, that's right. Jake, you'll be hearing from the lawyer soon. Please take care of it. Leaving a dejected Jake behind, we returned home with the items we had collected. Later, my divorce with Jake was finalized, and I demanded compensation through a lawyer. I received many apologies and pleas for reconciliation from my mother-in-law and Hannah, but I ignored them all. Surprisingly, there was still some inheritance left from Jake's father. The fact that they had been living off my money without using their own made me angry again. However, the inheritance wasn't enough for the compensation, and ultimately, they had to sell the house to make a lump sum payment. Naturally, this included the compensation I had been paying for Hannah. After selling the house, I don't know what became of Jake's family. I hope Jake can take care of his family, but ultimately he will choose his own path. I'd also claimed compensation from Jake's mistress, which led to an unexpected revelation. Through the lawyer, I informed her that Jake was unemployed and I had been supporting the family. Jake had deceived her, claiming he was an entrepreneur with a successful business. They broke up after an argument. Megan and I moved to an apartment, and I was able to give her the room she had longed for. I don't think my 17 years were wasted, but sometimes I wonder if I should have made a decision when I started being ignored. Now I feel happy that my home is a peaceful place,